just off one foot, just rotation. Just rotating. So pivoting the snowboard is to kind of make the snowboard turn, right? That's what pivoting means. Be able to pivot on the spot. And pivoting can be many things. Like if we think of those core competencies, what do you think pivot kind of relates to quite clearly?
Using lower joints.
Turning with the lower body. So turning with the lower body is kind of an idea of creating some pivoting movement, right? So maybe if we're looking at someone's riding and they're like, oh, they're not really turning with the lower body, then we can develop the skill of pivoting, helping them learn how to pivot the snowboard, you know, in an easier way using some more joints or methods, whatever else. And what's kind of a tactic, thinking back to over the last 2 weeks of training, that kind of helped you pivot your snowboard a little bit more?
Holding the jacket.
Holding the jacket, right? Resisting upper body rotation and allowing more rotation to happen from the lower body. Anyone ever get their headlights on knees or the pickle jar analogy? Helping create a little bit of pivot. An idea of using the knees, and as we're going through the turn, I position the knees. So ideas like that help people increase their skill of pivoting the board. And it's quite a good one actually, because we're going to do some pivoting down here and thinking about, I want to introduce the mandatory maneuvers of the level 2 today as well. One of them is short turns, the thing I suck at. So obviously they're my bane of my life right now. Level 2 short turns are in a corridor of about 3 to 5 meters. So again, think of how long your board is. You know, probably most people here are around that 150 mark. So think how many snowboards of width you're allowed to ride in. And that's kind of the corridor you got to kind of stay within, right? Let's say from me to Luke's probably about 5 meters. That's kind of the corridor we need to stay in while we're doing this. So exhibitions are a little bit overkill for this. Lower exhibitions are a very good place for it. It's kind of where they do a lot of the level 2 short turns. So let's ride down there. And while we're going down, we can practice some short-ish turns, see if we can get them going on exhibition. But think to yourselves, what are some movements you make to help the board pivot? And I'll give us some things to think about when we get down to the next key things to try and get rid of what we kind of call dead spots. Dead spots is kind of when you spend a little bit of time traversing the hill, kind of waiting to get right to do your next turn, right?
I did a lot of
On
that.
these short turns, again, you've got quite a small corridor. Let's just imagine from this line to that line is about 5 meters. You kind of want the exit of one turn to be the initiation of that next turn. So as you roll out of a turn, as you come across the hill, you're getting back on that edge, starting a new turn. So it kind of creates a fluid, consistent movement, showcasing that vertical movement as well to get your grip. Otherwise, you might end up chattering out or reaching a bit too extended, right? And one of the big things is making sure we do get the board back across the hill. And we do that through some active steering, right? Have you guys ever tried twisty discs? No. Okay, this is a little tactic I think about quite a lot when I'm doing short turns. When I'm turning onto my heel edge, obviously I'm goofy, I actually think about twisting my feet in the direction I want the board to go. So after I've got my edge and I've started to get my grip, I start pushing my feet in the direction of my heel edge. But when I'm going from heel onto my toe edge, I start kind of twisting the feet in the binding in the opposite direction, just to create a little bit quicker movement. Now we're in a little bit more of a restricted corridor. We want to think about being able to turn a little bit quicker. So I'm just moving my joints down to my snowboard to get a little bit of a quicker reaction. Make sense? Nice. Let's give it a go down here. Just kind of imagine, if you will, there's two walls 5 meters apart, and you're just trying to stay within that wall. Don't worry too much about being pretty short turns. Like, we've got, quite a good number of weeks to work on these maneuvers. I just think it's good to get them out there on day one so everyone knows what they are.
I was going to ask about pivot. How do we use it?
This is a tactic that's going to help pivot, right? So this is an idea of steering the board, which is going to create more of a pivoting movement. So if you eliminate pivoting from snowboarding, you go snowboarding, what do we end up with?
Carved turns.
So to let the board slide is to pivot the snowboard. If you resist pivoting movements, you can end up with carving. So does that kind of make that a little bit clearer? Yeah, nice. So as long as the board is sliding, there is pivoting happening. So, I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration of like level 2 short turns, just so you kind of get an idea of what it looks like.
And then what are we doing down here?
Just imagine trying to stay in a corridor of 5 meters wide. So you're not kind of relying on too much of that reversing across the hill, too much seeking that next turn. Just trying to get in a bit of a rhythm of one turn straight into the next. And to help with that, you can think about using those feet just to twist in the direction you want to turn.
Sick.
Sweet. I'll go about halfway down.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Let's go.
Jack, and it's kind of a similar with Jack and Wayne as well, to be honest. Be careful about letting Wayne off that back foot and kind of bringing it round, kind of like an unloading movement. You want kind of weight to stay equal on both feet, so that you've got all the way through the turn. Otherwise, we're kind of cheating, we limit lift it up, and we see that by a lot of snow kind of going down the hill more than out to the side.
It's
So
like
we
pushing
don't
your
want,
back leg to...
not necessarily pushing, because if you push, you end up with a little bit of an extended back foot. My edge change is kind of happening definitely kind of in the first part of that turn rather than down the hill. And when you kind of lift, what happens is that back foot comes up and the board kind of, does that make sense? That front foot doesn't necessarily go straight onto that new edge. It kind of transitions as we meet the fall line. I said, what did I say? Toe edge, yes. So this is a common thing as well. So symmetry is something they look for. So think about that symmetrical shape from heel to toe side. So what was happening is you were closing off your heel side quite nicely, and then toe side stayed a little bit open, and then we dumped the speed on that heel side. So it's just a case of the toe side didn't quite close off as neatly as that heel side. And that's where that steering movement from the feet, or even if knees, if you find that helps easier, really helps close the board off. I always think I need to get the board across the hill, and that's when I can start that next turn again. Yeah, and you kind of felt for yourself anyway, right? You just feel like the toe side wasn't feeling too great?
Felt shorter.
Shorter. Oh, what? So you felt like there was more time on the heel side?
Yeah.
Less time on the toe side?
I feel like Cal's time is too. On my heel side, I kind of push my back leg out, and then I kind of rotate quickly.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Because if we push the back leg out, we're now in a compromised position where now we're struggling to start the next turn, right? Nice.
I kind of cheat on my toe.
It's not a bad thing though. Like, you know, the fact you guys are aware of this really shows that you've all got your pins now, right? We're really starting to think in this kind of mind frame now of how do we improve ourselves.
I saw videos too.
What's that, sorry?
I saw videos as well, which helps.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, videos are massive. We're definitely going to do some more of that in the coming weeks. Let's try a few more down here. Just think about those things. Watch for that feedback in my riding. Symmetrical, steering the board across the hill before I change edge. It's kind of a fluid movement, always moving. And look for kind of how my body kind of stays stacked and one foot doesn't kind of extend out of each other.
Oh my god.
Too small.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if like we try and make it too tight, we brush off a lot of speed.
Yeah,
And it's kind of weird when we're trying to do more in less space, less time.
How many more meters do I have of room?
I'd say side to side was good. It's just a case of the actual arc of the turn was very quick.
Okay, alright.
I'd say a little bit wider on the arc. This was one of my issues. I was trying to overperform even at the full standard.
Cool.
Like, why you still got to be a nice arc to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, think about that rather than try to push it around as quickly as possible. Like, don't take your time with it, but allow yourself more time than you're giving yourself.
Cool.
Pretty good. Since we're here, pivoting, we all got an idea of what pivot is, right? To turn the snowboard, allow it to slide, allow it to move in a rotational plane. So let's talk about edging. What's edging? Yeah, right. It's pretty simple. Like more edge, less edge. Stop laughing. I know what I'm thinking.
I remember me and James. It's such a shame he's not here last year. Like he had an edging teach on his level 4. I'm gonna make you all really good at edging, and everyone in level 4 is just like. Anyway, enough of that humour. So what's something we may have used to work on edging in the last few weeks? I've done some acid. That's basically just edging, right? And how did we achieve that? Kind of a combination of like tipping a little bit, right? But then also using the lower joints. Exactly, right? So under edging, there are sub-skills. Edging is made out of gliding and angulating the body. So that's kind of a level 3 teach, going into a little bit more specifics. Level 2 teach is just about edging. We can talk about what's a simple skill for getting better at edging, maybe.
Oh, not for us, sorry.
Can be. It's still something that helps us increase our edge, right? In fact, come down here real quick. Have I used the ankles with you guys before doing a traverse?
Yeah, I think so.
Getting a little bit of a wiggle?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a tactic I use to help increase, focus on edging. Another thing, kind of, hopping in the traverse. That could be position and balance. It could be edging, so we're creating an edge, a strong platform to be able to push off of. Another good thing for practicing our ability and our skill at edging is actually when it's very, very icy, we don't want to use more edge, because then we reduce the platform we're standing on. The flatter we keep the board, the more platform we can stand on. So sometimes we talk about improving somebody's ability to edge the snowboard by making less of it. Does that make sense? And I think one thing we all do, and I do it as well, is we use a little bit too much edge on that toe side. If we can, we can use the ankle a lot. So on the way down here, we're going to ride all the way to the lift. And let's think about using as little edge as possible on the way down. Great time. Kind of watch each other. We'll be doing turns. Cheating. But I like your theory. You don't make turns, you don't make mistakes. But have a look at me riding down here. I'm just going to do some larger turns. But I'm going to try and use the minimum amount of edge I can get.
If the guy riding on going to crash into you.